What's going on, everybody? We're back. It's a Sooners Illustrated podcast, episode 20 on this Thursday, September 21st, 2023. Do you remember the 21st night of September? Josh Callaway, Collin Kennedy, James Jackson, Tom Green will be along in just a bit. Packed show for you going into the Cincinnati weekend. Of course, we're going to have our full OU-Cincinnati game preview coming up in just a bit. Got some big recruiting news. Oklahoma happened to get a pretty big fish last night. We're going to talk about that a lot in just a second. Gentlemen, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Big travel weekend for everybody coming up here over the next few days.
Yeah, busy slate for everyone. I mean, y'all were just out in Tulsa, turning right around and going to Cincinnati. Apparently, James is going to Arlington for the Beyonce concert.
Got to go to Beyonce for my wife, man.
Busy time, man. But yeah, I'm headed out to Houston here this weekend while y'all head out to Ohio. A lot going on, man. This is what you live for in the industry, right? So
yeah.
I'm just glad to be back on with Collin, man. It's been a minute since I've been on with CK, man. We got to get the pod going together.
My guy, man. I have the coffee going for you. I'm ready to bring the juice.
And we're technically hitting Kentucky, too, if that counts. The airport's in Kentucky. Our hotel's in Kentucky.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, the amount of states that we're hitting, it's a high number. Sooners Illustrated, we got you. We're all over the map this week.
Beyonce review coming up.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Obviously, it's going to be fun to get up there. You know, the Tulsa game was fun to go somewhere else, but obviously it's Tulsa. It's right up the road. We've all been to Tulsa many times. It was a heavy OU crowd. This will be completely different, true road environment, a place that we've all never been. You know, a lot of OU fans have never been. It's been a long time since OU's been there. So looking forward to that coming up this weekend. And we'll talk about that game a lot here coming up in just a bit. Like I said, though, we got to kick it off. We got to start. Danny Okoye is in. He committed last night. James and I were up there in Tulsa, Bixby to be exact. He made his announcement official, his commitment official. Choosing between Oklahoma, Texas, and Tennessee in his final three. Made official. Pick the Sooners. If you are a VIP subscriber to Sooners Illustrated and a listener of the podcast regularly, you know that Collin felt really good about Okoye being in for the Sooners, and that's the way it went. Committed last night. Like I said, James and I were there. Guys, whoever, I guess, Collin, you could start. Or either way, I don't mind. Big get here, obviously. Really big fish. Composite #1 player in Oklahoma. Top 10 edge in the country. And Oklahoma's got him. This defensive line group, that power line that Todd Bates likes to talk about, is really shaping up. Big get here for Oklahoma.
Yeah, and I think the story here, we know the kind of player he is, right? We've talked about this time and again on the pod. We know what this addition means for Oklahoma going into the SEC. But I think the best way to really discuss this commitment is because, in celebration of being back on with my guy James, is reminiscing on once upon a time when one of his first stories with us as
the first
story was about Danny Okoye, and he got yelled at by every Oklahoma fan imaginable. And I had to come to his defense and be like, hey, here's why they're upset. But yeah, man, I put it in the commit story from impossible to pledge. It's pretty wild when you think about the trajectory that this recruitment took. I mean, at one point, there was like genuine dislike between fans. It felt, I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, man, everyone had their take about Danny Okoye once upon a time. Oh, he's not going to end up a Sooner. He's not a Sooner. And look, justifiably so, right? At one point, this was seen as an impossible partnership. But Miguel Chavis deserves all the credit in the world here. I was talking to a source the other day who said, quote, Chavis has been working night and day to keep this guy in state. And I can't fathom the type of journey it took to get Danny Okoye committed to Oklahoma for Miguel Chavis. But here we are. The job is done. He does an outstanding job in this recruitment. Todd Bates helps out. Brent Venables was huge. I mean, Danny Okoye was telling a bunch of media outlets how it impressed him. The head coach was just as involved in his recruitment as the assistant coaches on staff. So, yeah, man, I think that's the big story here off the top. I mean, we can get into Okoye, this, that, and the other, who he is, what he's going to bring to the table. But we're talking about a commitment that at one point was seen as, a non-factor. And so huge addition, really talented player. And when you factor in the journey it took to get here, overall, a very impressive get by Oklahoma.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that's what it comes down to. You talk about the fans and what they thought that it was impossible. I mean, that's not a bad sentiment that it was at the time. It was like there's no way they're gonna get him. But it's just like I kept hearing, things from his head coach, just talking with James Ballinger over there at Tulsa Noah. I mean, it seemed like the door was still open, and I thought like, hey, this would be a good first story to put out there. Here's a couple of guys in the state that Oklahoma can go after, and then it just paid off. And even Danny Okoye told us yesterday it was like he was leaning Tennessee until that last official visit to OU. So I mean, like it shows you that the fans weren't too far off. I'll give them credit for that. Just at the time with everything they were hearing, I think everybody else is hearing the same thing. But now it's completely turned around. And like we've said overall, a lot of flips can happen, man. These are high school kids. They change their minds a lot. And that's the name of the game, man. That's the name of the game. This is recruiting. That's why it's fun. That's why it's exciting. And you got a good one. One of the best guys in the state.
Yeah, the fans, again, justified takes across the board, Josh. But
yeah,
just like James mentioned, and we say it all the time, this is recruiting coverage. Mm-hmm. There is nothing that is certain. And so, again, just a testament to this staff and the roller coaster that was getting up to yesterday's event.
Mm-hmm. And as Josh and I saw yesterday, Danny Okoye is massive. Like he looks like he's ready right now. And I mean, he seemed media trained, didn't he, Josh? Like, I mean, he had all the right answers. He spoke well. I mean, he seemed really good overall, talking to us and everything like that. You would think a guy like that's homeschooled or whatever, doesn't get a lot of media attention most of the time, would be, a little timid, but he was comfortable in the skin, man. He was all the way there. So shout out to him, man. He looks really good. He's that type of prospect, I think. He's that good.
Yeah, as far as the type of player, real quick, I mean, we've talked about it, but time again, I mean, this guy's incredibly smart, very intellectual individual.
Yeah.
So you feel good bringing him in beyond the traits. I mean, we know it. He's around 6'4", 6'5". I believe he's weighing in around 246 to 249 pounds these days. Might be above 250 the way the guy's going. But I've said it before, and I'll say it again. He can put 600 pounds on the straight bar, and he can jump over his teammates in practice standing up. I mean,
and do backflips with full pads on. Like it's
backflips and full pads. But it's one thing to have all of that, and when you're a talent evaluator, you see that and you say, okay, you go and get that dude just based on the frame and athletic ability alone, right? Mm-hmm. But you build upon that with the type of player and person that Okoye is. To James' point, Josh, like he's so smart, he's so intellectual, and he's a very motivated individual. You feel good about bringing him in truly as a ball of clay that's going to be easily molded. I mean, we talk about projections and all of that, but you got to have the know-how and the willingness to do so in order to capitalize on what your God-given ability is. And that's what Okoye is 10 times over. So, I mean, look, it's one thing to get that guy, but you got to capitalize on his potential. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned this to our board, and I've said it here on the podcast, and I will say it again, like, I've talked to a number of our scouting department guys at 24/7 Sports about what we're going to do with Danny Okoye in the next 2024 class rankings update. I know everyone was on me. Everyone was getting after me the other night.
He got on me last night too about it. Yeah,
I was like, "Come on, man! I'm trying to do my work." But look, he's gonna. I firmly believe, and I don't want to put words in the mouth of our coworkers, but like I believe Danny Okoye is going to go up, and it's because of all this combined into one that makes him such a projectable type of player.
And you talked about maximizing on his potential. That's something the coaching staff really sold to Danny Okoye, on his visits and everything like that. I asked him if, staying in the state of Oklahoma, playing, where you kind of grew up, did that play a factor? And he said, no, it didn't. This is just one of the best relationships and the best chance to be, the best player I can be. That's pretty much what it came down to for him. And so that shows you Oklahoma didn't just win this because he's an in-state prospect, he's close to home, things like that. He could have gone anywhere. He chose Oklahoma because of the coaching staff and what they promised him. And I think that looks pretty good for the OU coaching staff here.
Yeah, and like exactly to James' point, like make no mistake here, Texas and Tennessee both really wanted this guy. Mm-hmm. They really wanted this guy. And I think at one point I had heard he was essentially a lean to both over the course of this recruitment. And here we are today. He's in Oklahoma's 2024 class. You can't overstate the journey it took to get here. Not only because of it wasn't even a relationship, but even when it became a relationship, they still had to overcome some serious contenders in this recruitment.
100%. Yeah, I mean, to piggyback on what James said earlier, I was definitely, I haven't got the chance to see him play. I've seen obviously highlights and things like that, but in person, I've never met him before until yesterday. I was definitely struck by how polished he is. Because again, you would kind of think, the stereotype of a guy who plays for a homeschool team, probably doesn't have a lot of media, doesn't have his teammates, but he doesn't have he doesn't go to school, and things like that with other, students in public school or whatever. But he was so polished. He finishes a lot of these times, and Colin's been to a lot of them. James and I've been to a lot of them now, especially too. These guys finish making their announcement, and people come up and they want to take photos with them and stuff like that. And they almost kind of don't even think about like, oh, there's all these media guys here that want to talk to me. And he took like a couple photos, but then immediately was like, ready. Like, let's go. Like he saw us all waiting. And it was like, let's go. I'm ready. Let's, media, any questions? I'm ready to talk.
And he did 3 separate interviews. He did 3 separate.
He was a man of the people yesterday. He was holding court. It was great. So
he also showed up on time, even though he locked his keys in his car. Like he was there. He said, if I said it's at 6:30, it's going to be at 6:30. So
I asked him, I was like, did you get your keys out? He's like, no. He's like, I just had to get a ride up here. He's like, I'll deal with it later, I guess.
Yeah.
I was joking with our Cincinnati site last night. I was on their podcast, and both times I've hopped on with them, OU's landed a 4-star defensive end type who has gone completely off the rails with their timeline. And I had to text him again. I'd be like, I'm sorry to do this once again, but the kid who's probably committing here pretty soon locked his keys in the car. So my anxiety is through the roof right now. I don't know. I don't like that trend, man. I really don't.
Unbelievable.
What about that? What about the hat science, Josh? You see the OU hat was in the middle this time.
Yeah, I honestly, yeah. The Tennessee hat looked to be
the
like
hat
the
flip
most,
was
like,
amazing.
Yeah.
The hat flip.
The hat flip was the smoothest thing I've ever seen.
So slick.
Josh, you gotta put that clip over this right now. You gotta show the audience that hat flip right now. When you go back and post.
Yeah, if you haven't seen on our YouTube, and obviously on the YouTube channel, you can see him make his announcement and the interview we did with him after. Recommend check out both. But yeah, the spin around of the hat, throw it on, horns down was like one of the smoothest. I mean, he crushed that. He absolutely crushed that. That's a video that will live forever. If he drops the hat or something, it's ruined.
Yeah.
But he killed it. It was awesome. But yeah, also too, like you said, James, earlier with his official visit, he had one of the best quotes of the thing, and you wrote about it, James. You included it in your story. He talked about. I asked him, I was like, "You were in, at a game this year, and what was that like?" And he said, "I got goosebumps. It's the one place they gave me goosebumps, and so I followed that. I trusted my body, basically, saying this is where I need to be. So pretty cool. Like I said, really well spoken kid. I recommend check out the interview, James' story, and he's going to be a fun one. Obviously, as a player, but also I think we're going to enjoy talking to him more, especially whenever he's at OU, because that power line that I talked about with Todd Bates earlier, he's putting together quite the group, obviously. So we'll talk about that a little more in just a minute as this class kind of rounds into shape. That defensive line group especially is quite a haul right now, but we'll get into that in a minute.
Josh, that's what we said. Oh, we'll get in a minute. Here, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted, before we get there, to kind of segue over a couple of updates real quick.
Rundown, James.
Go ahead.
Couple of updates real quick I want to get from Collin before we get there because it'll tie it in and make more sense for everybody. A couple of guys who are obviously Oklahoma's been chasing. OU fans are very well aware of. Terry Bussey, first one. Collin, obviously, he's committing next week. And if you're unfamiliar with Bussey, first off, great name. Second off, this guy is really, really a freak of nature guy. He's a number 1 athlete in the class per us at 24/7 Sports. Number 15 player. He's probably going to play wide receiver right at Oklahoma if that's the way it goes with Emmett Jones. He's committing next Thursday. This has been a tough one. Obviously, everybody wants this kid. Just kind of a temperature check, I guess, how you feel that that's shaping up as of now for Bussey.
Yeah, man. So speaking of Emmett Jones, he was out there to go see Terry last Friday. And so Oklahoma has been doing their best. And I do think that they've done a good job to this point. So where do I want to start? I think the best place to go from here is, again, revisiting his summer visit. He was on campus at Oklahoma, had a great trip. If I remember correctly, it was an official, but he had a great time. He was able to sit down with the staff. They took him through film. And the thing you have to know that Josh mentioned briefly, if you're not familiar with Terry, is he's being recruited on both sides of the ball. by a number of different programs, i.e. Oklahoma wants him as a receiver, A&M wants him as a defensive back. Some schools are saying, if you literally just give us a chance, we will let you do whatever you want on campus.
Just get here. Yeah,
just please come. And so it just depends on what your pitch is, right? But that's the thing is Terry told our own Mike Roach, who's been killing it for us as the South Central recruiting analyst helping out at Sooners Illustrated. He told Roach, like, Oklahoma's not having to pitch to me. Like, they don't have anything to sell me. I know what they are. I have a lot of respect for that program. I have great relationships. Part of that's Emmett Jones, who, again, was out there to see him last Friday. Jeff Levy had taken him through the offense and had shown him, what is your role going to be? What are you going to be asked to do? Here's how we want to highlight you and your skill set. I know that struck a note with him. I know that the staff talked to him about how they feel he's more than just an elite player. They feel like he'd be someone who'd be a captain of an Oklahoma football team someday soon. And that struck a note with him as well. So, like, OU was killing it to the point where sources were indicating, like, OU might have a legit shot to get this guy. Now, since then, there's been a lot going on, and from now until next Thursday, so a week from today, again, when he's committing on the 28th, there's still going to be a lot going on. He is going to go visit LSU this weekend, so the Tigers are going to get their final punch. A&M's been really recruiting this guy heavily, and I believe I still have my crystal ball in for Texas A&M at like a 6 overall confidence. But I'll say this, I mean, Oklahoma, there's still a lot of optimism from people that I talk to. And so if you told me that a week from now, Oklahoma somehow makes this race a little bit interesting and might even come out on top, I don't know that I would necessarily be surprised. But I still do feel that the Aggies are in primary contention here for his eventual commitment. Now, again, we got to see what happens in Baton Rouge. We got to see what happens in those ever signature phone calls that lead up to an eventual commitment, right? Everyone tries to get their sentimental pitch in down the stretch. But, yeah, I think Oklahoma's somewhere towards the top 2-3 in this list. And when you're in that type of position, really can't ask for much more. So we'll see what they get done over the next 7 days. But the bottom line is they had him on campus for the season opener. Taylor Tatum's been recruiting this guy for Oklahoma within the 24 class. Emmett Jones is really working hard. And then from here, we'll see what they can do. But Texas A&M, solid position. Oklahoma, though, still more than a fighting chance.
Yeah, obviously a week is a long time for these guys. So we'll see how things kind of shake out. So you want to be a VIP subscriber. Collin will be offering updates as he gets them leading up to that decision a week from today. And obviously, like I said, he's one of those just top level athlete guys. If you can find a way, it would be a monstrous get if they.
He's literally Mr. Texas football. I mean, was named. I mean, he basically won the Heisman Trophy of Texas high school football last year. And my buddies over at Dave Campbell's Texas Football, who give out the award, were like, we might have a first ever back-to-back Mr. Texas football winner in Terry Bussey. I think last week, Josh, his first touch of the game, he scored. The week before that, he was hurt, so he wasn't even supposed to play. They put him in like the last 10 seconds, and they just snapped the ball to him, and he scores to win the game. I mean, he's stupid good, man. He's awesome.
He'd be Archie Griffin of Mr. Texas football, only back-to-back. So, yeah, obviously keep up with us on that. Collin will be offering updates as he gets them leading up to that next week. The other one I wanted to get an update on is Michael Boganowski. The four-star composite four-star linebacker, number one player in Kansas by the composite up there in Junction City. It's kind of seemed like, obviously you can chime in better than me, but it seems like it's kind of the in-state schools in OU, K-State especially maybe in there. Just, I guess, how you feel about that. And is there, I honestly don't know, is there a timeline for him that you're expecting anything from there, or what does OU stand right now?
Yeah, I put together some notes on Boganowski and what I've heard. So this is kind of a key stretch within this recruitment coming up. He was on campus for Oklahoma's game against Arkansas State. And why is that notable? Obviously, that was his first time being in an Oklahoma game. They blew out Arkansas State 73-0. Atmosphere was pretty solid to start, at least, right? I mean, the season opener and everything. Yeah. But then also, and this is a thought that I had that was confirmed by a source, like that was a game in which specifically the safeties played well for Oklahoma. Now, why is that notable? Boganowski, not only composite 4-star, but largely ranked by everybody and being pursued by a lot of people as a linebacker. But when Oklahoma entered the mix, they offered him as a safety. Specifically, they would like him to probably play cheetah for them in this defense. And it kind of makes him an outlier, and it has made Oklahoma essentially an outlier in this recruitment in a positive sense. Now, it sounds like he had a great time. It sounds like his dad, who was an awesome dude, had a great time as well. It sounds like Boganowski's younger brother was having a blast on campus. I guess he was asking when the next time they could come back was going to be. But again, the key stretch right after that, I believe a week later, so from like the 2nd to the 9th, he was in Manhattan for Kansas State's game against Troy, where they blew out a pretty solid Troy team. They had "We want Boganowski" signs in the student section. Again, I mean, K-State's like 40 minutes from his house, so they were ready. And Kansas State, I think, has kind of gone from like, we want you to come in, be linebacker, lead our defense, to, I mean, dude, whatever you want to play, whatever you want to do here, let's do it. And if you don't know already, K-State has 2 staffers who have been longtime close friends of Boganowski's dad. So there is a strong level of trust in addition to proximity, which are pretty 2 huge boxes to check, right? So, and plus K-State's just a really darn good football program. Everyone knows I kind of got an affinity for K-State, but I'll put that aside. There's reason why Boganowski and his family have a lot of affinity for K-State as well. But then to kind of close things out, he's coming up on a Kansas visit this weekend. I can't remember if it's an official or not, so I'm sorry about that. But Michael Swain, who is the best Kansas beat reporter in America, works for us over at fog.net on 24/7 Sports. And I've been talking to him frequently about what I'm hearing about Boganowski. And look, Kansas fully understands the perception of this recruitment. Everyone kind of feels it's Oklahoma versus K-State, trading blows, but KU has basically said, look, we want to keep the top players in the state of Kansas at Kansas. And they have paired a relentless approach from a recruiting perspective with aggressive NIL opportunities, playing time. The staff at KU is incredibly talented under Lance Leipold. Like, I got a lot of respect. And you factor all that in, guys, with he's going to go to KU's game against BYU this weekend, where it's the Big 12 opener. It's a sellout crowd out there at the booth. I mean, it's going to be ruckus. And if KU ends up winning that game and Kansas staff does what it's expected to do, I mean, KU's going to be right in there. Now, on top of that, I mentioned the key stretch. He'll have his Kansas visit done, so he will have visited all 3 primary contenders for a game in the early portion of this season. But then there's also rumors of like, well, what if he just takes a random visit to Florida State or to USC? And I don't know how likely that is. I'll probably have more, hopefully, later on as that gets closer to the time. But yeah, man, long story short, it's been kind of Oklahoma, K-State, and KU will get their shot. I have full reason to believe. I mean, they're going to at least make things interesting. And then from there, as far as the timeline, as I noted for our subscribers, like, I think he would like to have things done before Kansas high school football playoffs begin. But as we've seen, the timeline is still very fluid. I don't think he's in any rush. They want to make the right choice. And so far, I think that they're still evaluating what that right choice would be.
Yeah, the booth will be rocking. You know, Lance Leipold, that's a totally different program than it was
totally
not that long ago. And whenever Oklahoma goes up there in a few weeks, it's like toward the end of October, I'm looking forward to it because when OU's been there in the past, I mean, last time they were there, they literally let people in for free in the second half because it was close and nobody expected it to be close. It shows you how much has changed in a short time period. So, going to be interesting. Going to be fun to watch. Keep up with that. So, with those updates in mind, Oklahoma with Okoye in pocket now, up to 7 in the team rankings for 2024 by our own 24/7 Sports composite rankings. Can I interest you in a defensive line group of David Stone, Jaden Jackson, Nigel Smith, Danny Okoye, and Wyatt Gilmore? Pretty good. And then all the other guys that we talked about that they have, all the receivers Emmett Jones has had. The class is shaping up very nicely. Obviously, Bussey, Boganowski hanging out there along with some other guys. I guess just how this class is kind of rounding into form for you guys. And obviously, there's still a lot of possibility they could get into that top 5, depending on how things go with some of these other guys. But, it's another – coming off a top 5 class, you had another one that you're really – it's shaping up quite nicely here as signing day comes up. Still a few months away, but coming up a little bit.
Yeah, man, this is shaping up well for OU as they enter the SEC. And this is exactly what we were talking about before the David Stone commitment. We were like, if you get David Stone, you get the other guys that you need, like OU's going to have like almost a 5-star in each position group. So like right now, like you got a quarterback, tight end, you got a running back. We don't know about the wide receiver just yet, but Emmett Jones is Emmett Jones. So that, something could happen there. You got defensive line, you got linebacker, you got safety. I mean, that's really good. At least a 5-star somewhere and a bunch of 4 and 3 stars surrounding them. That's a good start for OU. And we knew on the defensive side is where everybody's so worried about for OU entering the SEC, and the defensive line is where it starts. And at this point right now, you got to feel really comfortable about where OU's defensive line is with all the guys they have coming in, and just the production that they're already producing with the guys they have now. They shows you that they know what they're doing. This Venable staff knows what they're doing on the defensive side. You see it through the first couple of games here, and so this is shaping up very well for OU. And moving into the SEC, this is exactly what we're expecting it for them to do, and they're doing it. That's what it's coming down to.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, this class is very good, and going from that, everyone wants to know what's next. And I think this is peak what's next season. So I think it's very interesting, guys, and this is why I felt it important. Oklahoma's at 24 commits in the class. You usually hover around 25 traditionally. I think Oklahoma will go over that number if the appropriate scenarios arrive. But at 24 commits, ranked 7th in the country, I think it's important to note that this is probably a fair expectation for this class moving forward. So everyone's going to want to know who's committing next. Can they get off of that into the top 5? And I look at this and I say, okay, if you're an OU fan, don't be upset if OU adds maybe 1 or 2 guys more, easily could be more, but doesn't necessarily climb into the top 5. And that's even considering the fact that I personally believe at some point in our next rankings update, I think Danny Okoye is going up, like we mentioned. I think Jaden Jackson is going up. I mean, this dude
he looks good.
Probably should.
Yeah,
he's killing it right now. And it just so happens, our director of scouting lives down the road from IMG and Andrew Ivins. So he's watching Jaden Jackson a lot. We're going to have a thorough rankings update on that guy here pretty soon. I think Devon Mitchell's going up because we're going to have further context on him as a 2024 class member rather than 25. So, bottom line here, some of the guys that are committed in this list of 24 have a shot to help out OU standing. But if I had to tell you right now, I'm being a little bit lazy here. I haven't put in my crystal ball for Daniel Akinkunmi, but I think my pick is on Oklahoma for that guy. He boosts Oklahoma up a little bit. I think it's like 273.77 team score if you were to commit. That still kind of has Oklahoma outside of the top 6. And then from there, I think you have to look at this. A&M's got 21 commits. They've got room to operate, so they'll be going up. Florida State only has 21 commits. They're the 6th spot above Oklahoma. Got to assume they're going up. Tennessee's at 20. And then I think the other note here, too, Texas is only at 17. USC is at 15. There are teams in the rankings who are probably shooting way up. But, yeah, and on top of that, Florida's at 21. Alabama's at 20. The list goes on and on. So the bottom line here, Oklahoma's class is really good. So as far as what's next, just know that if this is what it is and Oklahoma hovers around the 6 to 7 slot in the 2024 rankings, be pretty excited, man, because especially in a 24 cycle that's been a little bit hectic, I mean, they've come out with some really big wins, and they were hovering around a clip that would indicate they're going to be serious contenders within the SEC.
And in my mind, I just keep labeling him as a 5-star. Devon Mitchell, he looks like a 5-star to me. I mean, I don't know what the analysts are going to do, but he looks exactly like it. And I keep saying he's a 5-star. I mean, he looks that good. We see him all the time in clips and things like that. I mean, this is a good situation to be in for OU. I mean, and you still got the transfer portal, which Venables has showed he knows how to use that pretty well too. So good start for OU.
Yeah, same cannot be said for a guy he used to work with, but Brent knows how to bring in quarterbacks all the time too.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, very big
It's
difference.
Florida State Clemson weekend.
I understand.
Yeah, I think you be kidding yourself.
Sips coffee.
You're
Oh my
god,
god.
worried about how that might go this weekend there in the other Death Valley. But yeah, no, going to be fun to keep an eye on. Obviously, you cranked that top 5 class a year ago, and the hope is to keep stacking those. And this class is obviously, like you said, Collin, really, really good. May not end up getting to that quiet ranking, but doesn't take away from the players that they have. We'll see. Obviously, there's still months before signing day, like we said, but going to be fun to keep an eye on and continue to monitor. All right, before I let you guys go, obviously, want to get your thoughts on the Cincinnati game. Tom Green will be in just a few minutes here to break it down with me, but want to get from Collin and James both their thoughts on this ball game this weekend. Oklahoma's a 14.5-point favorite up there in Nippert. Like I said earlier, yes, they played a road game, but not really. It was a road game on paper only. It was an OU crowd up there in Tulsa. This is the first time really getting this crowd out on the road. Some of these young guys, first time really playing where the crowd hates you, basically, for Peyton Bowen and, if Jackson Arnold gets in there, things like that. Should be very hostile. Should be a big crowd. Cincinnati's coming off a rough loss against Miami of Ohio in overtime, but they've done some nice things earlier this year. Their defensive front is pretty salty. They got some guys on there. Let's see what happens. First Big 12 game for the Bearcats. So all that, they're going to be up for it and ready to go. Guys, thoughts on this game? And what does Oklahoma got to do to get the job done and get to 4-0? The thing that they couldn't do a year ago. This is where they tripped up last year against Kansas State at home. How do they avoid that this time? What are some thoughts on this game?
I think it's going to take a very good passing game from Dylan Gabriel and company. I think that's what it's going to come down to because we've talked about the running back struggles, up to OU standards so far, and Cincinnati does a very good job against the run. Their defensive line is pretty good, so I think it'll take a big passing game from Dylan Gabriel and all the receivers out there, and having that on the offensive side. They've shown it all year long that they can lead this offense. So, I mean, you're not too concerned about that at the moment. So just looking at that, and then on the defensive side, just guys staying healthy. I mean, just everybody staying healthy because I think as of right now, this defense is constructed well enough to hold Cincinnati down. They've already gone against a high-powered offense against SMU and things like that. They've shown that they can handle this type of situation. But you gotta stop that quarterback, man. That's the thing. So just staying healthy, staying disciplined. That's what it'll come down to for this one.
Yeah, I mean, this is strength on strength from one perspective. Oklahoma's run defense versus Cincinnati's ability to run the ball with the quarterback and a number of different running backs. So we're going to find out if that run defense is legit. But Cincinnati's also got the Big 12 leader in receptions, and Xavier Henderson. They're a multifaceted offense. And so I want to see what the pass rush looks like in this game. Can they get Cincinnati to 3rd and long? And if they do, can they get to the quarterback? Can that secondary hold up in coverage when Emory Jones shifts the pocket? But I think the big thing for me, guys, again, let's put on our headsets, right? If we were the coordinators, what are we doing? I want to see what this offensive line for Oklahoma looks like in this game, because not only do we know that Dante Corleone's a play on Sunday type of player for Cincinnati, an elite defensive lineman, number 1 rated PFF defender last season, but they've got 3 or 4 other dudes who are 5th or 6th year seniors on that defensive line that check in around 6'4", 6'3", 265, 270 pounds. So they're strong, they're physical, they will collapse the pocket very quickly. And then on top of that, I think the other part of this too, it's one thing to play a very talented defensive line, but it's another to face a defense that wants to bring 6 to 7 guys at times all at once. And so, I mean, James mentioned it, the passing game. What's that going to look like from a protection perspective? Can Oklahoma get some quick game going? Can they be methodical in the face of pressure? And then when they see some wear and tear of that Cincinnati front, especially if Cincinnati's sending 5, 6, 7 guys in pressure packages, when you see those guys getting tired, let's say you're having success and you're holding up against all that pressure, can you take your shots? Can you attack? Because Cincinnati's got a really solid corner on one end. It sounds like their other guys banged up, so that might be an emphasis. But, yeah, I mean, I really want to see how Oklahoma's offense specifically holds up along the line of scrimmage. Because if this offensive line, with potentially Caden Green starting at left guard, holds up against all these pressures and these physical defensive linemen, then there's an opportunity to have success on the road through the air, which is not always going to be common.
Yeah, and as Collin said, they like to bring pressure. And it's gonna be a tougher environment. I mean, this is the Cincinnati's first year in the Big 12. This is their season opener in the Big 12. You know, they're playing against Oklahoma. It's gonna be packed. It's gonna be loud. You know, can you get by with that? We went to practice the other day, Josh and I and Tom, and we heard the music. They had OU was preparing for this type of environment. It was like disorienting type of noise, Josh. I know you heard it. It was like screams and music.
Yeah, I don't even know how to describe it.
They're getting ready for
screaming mixed with like metal.
Yeah, it's crazy. They're getting ready for a crazy environment. So all that's going to play a factor. You know, just can DG, contain himself, which he should be able to. He's a guy that's been through many, many college football games, so he knows exactly, how to handle all the pressure and things like that. How will they hold up? That's what it is. How will they hold up on offense, and can the defense stay healthy? I think that's my picks.
Should be a fun one. Go ahead and lock in the picks, fellas. What do we think this weekend? Everybody on this screen is 3-0 against the spread and 3-0 straight up. Can't say that about our guy Tom. Didn't have OU covering against SMU. Right now he is dying for one of us to slip up, so he can not be the only one that has a 1 in the loss column picking against the spread. Like I said earlier, 14.5 is how I have it right now. That's when we're picking, so that's what we go off of. What do we think? How does this game go this weekend? Oklahoma, Cincinnati.
I'm going to go 38-21. Oklahoma wins and covers on the road. I don't think it's a blowout, but a lot of that has to do with Cincinnati potentially being able to move the chains a little bit. Now, I think that there is an opportunity for offensive success for Oklahoma in this game. Could it be a little bit shaky out of the gate? Sure. I mean, especially when you face a defensive front like Cincinnati's and you're facing so many complex blitz packages on the other side. But I'm going to go Sooners win and cover on the road, and I think it's a really quality win. I mean, especially when you consider the fact that Vegas is telling you this has a chance to be the closest matchup for OU so far this season. So I think Oklahoma finds a way to get it done, and they go ahead and cover and make a lot of people pretty happy.
I'm on board with Collin here, and he actually has the score that I was going to pick. But so to be a little bit different, I'm going to go 35-17. Oklahoma gets it done, does everything they need to do to win this game. I'm a little worried about the 17, but because Cincinnati's offense is pretty good, but OU's defense has done a good job too this season. So just going off of that, 35-17. Let's see how it goes down. Where you at, Josh?
It's gonna be fun. Should I hold it? Should I hold it for Tom? I think I'm gonna hold it for Tom. That way he's alone.
All right.
Alone. You'll see it. You guys will see it in due time. But I'll hold it for Tom. But I to give a little hint ahead, I'm going to be right in the same ballpark. I think Cincinnati, outside of that second quarter against Tulsa where Carter Williams came in and there was some busts and they kind of just looked, I don't know if it was a combination of, I don't know, laziness isn't the right word, but a little bit of kind of we're up by a bunch and we got some other guys in and whatever. Carter Williams wasn't, the guy who started the game. Who knows? But outside of those two drives, Oklahoma has dominated defensively so far this season. SMU, I think, has got a pretty good offense, and they could do anything a couple weeks ago. So we'll see. Tough test. Emory Jones can move around, obviously. Former Florida guy. Collin knows him well. But so we'll see.
That's why I trust the defense right now. I mean, you look at SMU's only touchdown was because 3 consecutive penalties, one by the head coach, and then you get Carter Williams comes in there, but one of those touchdowns because you have a true freshman in who just didn't know which coverage he was in. I mean, that's what it came down to. He didn't know if he was in cover 2 or man, he didn't know at the time. So It's only been like one real touchdown scored on OU when they're, fully capacity and everything like that. So, man, looks good so far. The defense looks good so far.
So far, so good.
Can't complain on it.
All
Collin's got a smirk, man. I don't like that. He knows something I don't know.
All right, I think that's it for now. We'll get Tom in here, and he and I will continue to break down this game a little bit further, and we'll give our picks at the end of it as well. Gentlemen, I appreciate you both. Have a good trip to Houston, Collin, and James, I'll see you in Cincy tomorrow.
Cincinnati.
3 games on the slate for me this week, guys, and there's basketball recruiting notes up as well.
Yes.
All on there.
Glad you mentioned that. Yeah.
So if you're out there, go subscribe to the site. We got a lot going on, baby.
Check it out, man.
It's going to be basketball season before you know it. That always sneaks up. Always. We're like 5 weeks away from the opener, so it'll be.
Yeah, what was it? 50 days away from the season start a couple days ago, so we're getting there. We're close.
As I've promised, I guaranteed it earlier in the year. Our site is going to change every single day. It's going to be new stories up every single day. We're talking basketball now. We got football. Hey, softball's been on the road too as well in recruiting, and that's been on the board. So just so much going on. It's all there. We got you.
It's the Big 12, the last Big 12 opener, and we've got content rolling out for you on that, and softball commitments, and where Porter Moser is flying to on airplanes. So I'm just saying.
Love it.
I'm just saying. We're already delivering.
No better time than now. VIP subscriber, Oklahoma.247sports.com. Know your team as well as anyone. Be the guy who knows what he's talking about at the office. You're talking to people, they're like, you don't even know. Be that guy because you know what's going on.
The water cooler king.
Yes.
Yeah. Be that guy.
Exactly. All right, we'll wrap this up. Tom Green jumping in now. Full breakdown OU-Cincinnati right now on the Sooners Illustrated podcast. All right, we now welcome in Tom Green. TG, how are you doing, sir? Ohio coming up, Cincinnati. New experience for all of us.
Yeah, man, I'm doing good. Been a busy week. Yeah. But excited to it's the first real road trip.
Yeah.
Last week, it was a nice little day trip. You, me, and James taking a little ride up the interstate. But this week we're actually traveling. Gonna get to spend some time in a new city and see how this team responds to being in a hostile environment for the first time.
Yeah, it's kind of there's a pros and cons of it. Whenever you have to actually fly out to a game instead of just being able to drive it, it's first off, it's fun to go somewhere different, further away that you have to fly. That's always cool. It's cool to be in a different city. You don't know when the kickoff is. You always do your flight on Friday because obviously you don't know when the kickoff's going to be. So this was booked. We're coming in Friday. That we would have had to for this one because it's an early game anyway. But you come in, so you have 2 full days that you're in this city. Now, the flip side of that is you get back Sunday and you're right back at it with coordinator presser on Monday. Like the turnaround is much quicker as opposed to what we had last weekend. So it's there's pros and cons of it, but I am excited. It's going to be fun. We were talking about with Collin and James. Should be a great atmosphere. You would think first Big 12 game. They're going to be up for that. Oklahoma's coming to town. I mean, the Cincinnati faithful should be up and ready and rocking on Saturday at Nippert Stadium. It's 11 a.m. Central kick, be noon local Eastern time zone there in Cincinnati. It's 11 a.m. game, like I said, on Fox. It is their big noon kickoff game, so the pregame show will be there. We get the Gus Johnson, Joel Klatt treatment on the broadcast, which for my money, my favorite booth in college football. So that's always kind of fun for fans to be watching on TV. These two teams haven't played a lot. This is only the third meeting. First time since I think I had it on the notes here, 2010. Oklahoma played up there in 2010 and beat them. So they're 2-0 against Cincinnati, but not a lot of history. Have never played at Nippert. The one time they played up there, they actually played at Paul is it Paul Brown? Is that the name of the Bengals stadium? Whatever it is. They played at the Bengals stadium last time they were there. So first time that OU's actually played at Nippert. Should be fun, like I said. It should be a good atmosphere. We talked about a little bit with Collin and James, Tom, that, this defense, like Jeff Lebby said on Monday, the best defensive front that they've played so far. They got some guys. This should be, Oklahoma's a favorite here, 14.5, and they should win. There's a solid favorite, but this is by no means a gimme. This is going to be a tough game this weekend for Oklahoma.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that defensive front is going to be the best one that they faced this season, and might be the second best that they probably face all regular season, probably behind Texas. But yeah, I mean,
mix there, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be their first true test. SMU was a step up in competition from the other two teams they played, but talent-wise, Cincinnati's probably, like you said, they got some dudes, especially on that defensive line. Dante Corleone, the Godfather, preseason All-American, big old nose tackle, kind of bolsters that unit. And they've been stout up front. They've been able to create pressure. Their run defense has been pretty good too. So it's going to be kind of just interesting to see how Oklahoma passes that test.
Yeah, I think especially, offensively for Oklahoma in this game, I think the obvious question is what the run game will be like. It's been a little spotty. They've had moments. Obviously, Ty Walker had a huge game in week 2. Javonte Barnes, his yards per carry wasn't bad. It was solid last week. 13 carries, I think 68 yards, I believe it was. But nobody else after him really did anything overly notable. They haven't ran the ball at the level that personally I thought they would. When we did our position breakdown back during fall camp, I was looking at this thing saying, look at these running backs. They are loaded at this position. I thought the offensive line was going to be perfectly good enough for them to have some real big-time success on the ground. And it's just been okay so far. And like I said, the competition is only going to get better. So that worries you a little bit. Like if you're not running at a real high level against Tulsa, it's reasonable to be a little nervous when you're playing against Cincinnati and Dante Corleone in this front. So that's a big question mark for me. How is this offensive line going to hold up? How well is Oklahoma going to run the ball? Because obviously they've thrown the ball incredibly well. These receivers have been fantastic so far. Haven't seen the tight ends get involved so much yet, but it hasn't mattered because the wide receivers have been so good. So, Tom, for me, it's, if they don't run the ball well and you're forced to pass, you're in 3rd and 9 or whatever a lot, because they've been really good on 3rd down so far this year, but they've also helped themselves out a lot. That's if you're talking about recipe for the upset, that would, that's one of the ingredients there is they're not running the ball well. They're forced to throw it. Cincinnati knows they're going to throw it. They can sit back. That's where things can maybe get a little hairy to me.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have to run the ball better than they have been. Jeff Lebby said it after the game last week. They didn't try to establish the run early because their game plan was just come out and throw it around the yard. And it obviously were Tulsa's pass defense not great. We talked about that last week and just how they did against Washington the week before. So Oklahoma didn't need to lean on the run game. Like you said, Javonte Barnes, had pretty solid efficiency numbers in terms of running.
Sure.
It wasn't a lot of it. I think it was the fewest rushing yards for the team in 2 years since that Baylor game. But they're going to need to be better running the ball moving forward. And, I expect things will start to ramp up. We saw Javonte get that start for the first time this season, have some productive runs. He's obviously feeling better. Gavin Sawchuk's getting back in the mix. They finally got him some run there. Jeff Lebby said this week, Gavin Sawchuk hasn't really practiced fully from the first week of fall camp until last week. So, they've clearly been very cautious with his injury, which, they still haven't said exactly what it was, but, he's been dinged up a little bit and, they've been taking it very slow with him. But if they can get him up to speed, they can get Javonte Barnes up to speed, get those guys going. I think this run game, it's only a matter of time before they start getting some more of those explosive plays because they really haven't had many big runs. Their biggest run all season was that 30-yarder that Tawee Walker had a couple weeks ago. They just haven't been able to create those chunk plays really in the run game. And, some of that is on the offensive line. This is a unit that they've done really well in pass protection. They've barely let Dylan Gabriel get touched this season, but they just haven't been consistently winning those one-on-ones in the run game that can create these bigger holes for these backs to burst through. And I think they're still tinkering with that line, what they like. Obviously, they've dealt with a little bit of injuries. Savion Byrd exiting really early on last week. We saw, Caden Green in there. We saw Troy Everett. We saw Jacob Sexton come in, get some run at left tackle too. So that left side of the line, I think they're still tinkering with and trying to get comfortable. But, eventually these guys are going to have to win those one-on-ones. And this is going to be a big test for them on that front because, like you said, Cincinnati's defensive line has some dudes, especially in the middle there. But right. if they can get the run game going, even just a decent run game this weekend, they should be in good shape because the passing game has been absolutely lights out through the roof.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I'm curious, especially if Savion Byrd is a no-go, which it seems fair to at least think he's probably not. That's the way the lean feels right now. How do they manage that? Is it Troy Everett? Is it Caden Green? Who we saw last week a little bit. And like you said, we saw Sexton in there. There's kind of How do they figure that out? They've been tinkering. They're trying to find that right kind of group. So that's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be interesting because, like I said, the anatomy of the upset here, Cincinnati's going to pull this off, and that would be it. And that's why, I hate to just refer back to things I wrote, but I do the players to watch. On Wednesday, Javonte Barnes was one of my players to watch because it just felt like if you get down, if this game happens and like you didn't watch it and you look at the box score without seeing what the final score is, Javonte Barnes has got over 100 yards rushing. It's like, okay, I think Oklahoma probably was okay. It's one of those types of moments. So I picked him because he kind of seems like he should be the guy right now. So we'll see. It's going to be fun to watch, see how that goes. Oklahoma is pretty much doing whatever they want offensively through the air. They put up crazy point totals, but it's going to be a bigger test this time around. Defensively, obviously, Emory Jones is very athletic. Most people know him. Saw him play at Florida. Obviously, can really move around. He's a scrambler, can tough to keep in the pocket. Cincinnati's got guys on the outside. They have some weapons at the receiver spot. And, obviously part of this is Emory Jones being able to scramble, but they have a top 10 rushing offense in the country through the first few games of the year. So this is an offense that's got some playmaking ability as well. Obviously, Oklahoma's defense has been really, really good so far. Had those kind of mental lapses for a little bit against Tulsa, but they reeled it in. Tom, obviously they've given up 28 total points in 3 games. And it's been a lot of good. At SMU, the one touchdown they got was a lot of penalties helped it. It's been really good. But this is another kind of interesting test because, it's fair to worry, I think, that Emory's going to be able to run around and just extend plays and make things happen. That's going to be a big key, obviously, for Oklahoma to try and limit that as much as they can.
Yeah, obviously Oklahoma's pass rush hasn't been, exactly where they want it to be at this point. It's still something they're working on, but they're going to need to do a good job of containing Emory Jones. Because you look at last year, some of the quarterbacks that gave Oklahoma the most problems were guys that could extend plays with their legs.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at Adrian Martinez, Max Dugan had a big running game. Garrett Green at West Virginia had a big game on the ground too. And, they gave Oklahoma fits. Emory Jones fits that mold. Now, given there's a reason he's a journeyman quarterback.
Sure,
he hasn't been, this world beater throughout his career. He started at Florida, spent last season at Arizona State. Now he's on his 3rd school, Cincinnati. Not saying he's not a good quarterback, but even though he's experienced, he just hasn't really lived up to some of those expectations that he had coming out of high school. I'm interested to see how Oklahoma is able to contain him and the Cincinnati run game because, like you said, they're a top 10 rushing attack right now. Given their first game of the season was against an FCS opponent, they're 1-1 against FBS opponents, including coming off the loss last weekend. But the run game has been productive regardless. I think even just against FBS opponents, they're averaging close to 250 yards per game on the ground. Oklahoma's been really good against the run so far this season. I mean, they're top 15. Or just outside of the top 15 nationally in rushing defense, allowing just 78 yards a game, holding opponents to 2.29 yards per attempt. Again, it's been against lesser competition through 3 games so far, but from where they were a year ago, it's still improved. Those numbers are still year over year in non-conference play better than they were, and they're one of just 5. They're one of just 5 teams in the country that have yet to give up a rushing touchdown.
It's nuts. And the only team in the country that's top 5 in scoring, both offensively and defensively. I mean, they've dominated so far this season. Now, going under the radar because the competition hasn't been great, and it's not going to change this weekend. There's roughly a billion big games this weekend. There's more ranked versus ranked games this weekend than any Saturday since I think it's like 2006. Like this weekend is an especially historically loaded slate. So Oklahoma Cincinnati, even though it's a big noon kickoff game, is probably going to fly a little under the radar, whatever OU does. And look, the reality here for OU is that the Texas game is closing in. It's looming. It's in a couple of weeks. You have this game, you have Iowa State, and then it's go time. So we know what Texas has done this year. Now, Alabama doesn't look to be Alabama that we usually are, which is kind of funny because obviously Texas's other big win in the last decade was when they beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame turned out to be really bad that year. Not saying the same thing is going to happen for Alabama, but it's kind of funny that this Bama team is struggling after Texas beats them, of course. But they look to be a legit playoff threat. Everybody's picking them to win the Big 12. So you've got 2 more games here to button things up before you get there. And so this is another big opportunity, for that. Obviously, Iowa State is off to a really rough start. They're at home next week. So this is a chance to kind of prove yourself a little more and have some confidence before that big game comes up in just a couple of weeks. So there's some things to work on here, and this is going to be, very interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as good as the defense has been, even after the Tulsa game last week, Brent Venables came in and said, there's a laundry list of items that they still need to clean up. They've been far from perfect. The results have been great, but this is a process-oriented team. That's what Brent Venables is building, a process-oriented program. And, they need to get all of that down pat to maintain those results. When you're facing, teams with better skill, better, talent on that roster, it's going to be about those finer details and not just being able to, hey, we're faster, stronger, quicker than our opponents, so we're going to pull away. You're going to need to beat them, between the margins. That's where you create separation. So obviously the defense has stuff to work on. The offense, I want to see how this offense does against a better defense. We talked about the run game, but can the passing game keep up this torrid pace? Dylan Gabriel's played like one of the best quarterbacks in the country right now.
Right.
He's gotten help from his receivers who have been lights out. He's the best third down passer in the country right now. He's completing 69% of his contested passes. And, a lot of that, he's putting the ball in good spots. But a lot of that is these guys are going up and making those competitive plays that we've heard Brent Venables talk about again and again. Right. Jaden Gibson, all 3 of his catches this year have been contested.
Yeah, just mossing guys.
Yeah. Were you over there when we got him after practice the other day?
No, James was in that scrum. I was not.
He was great.
He's awesome. Yeah.
He's like, so their group chat. We've heard a couple of the receivers so far this year throw out the term ether. Jaden Gibson said that's the name of the wide receiver group chat because they just want to be flammable, dangerous.
Yeah.
That's kind of the mentality that Emmett Jones has kind of instilled in them since he took over that room, and they're playing like it. They got 4 receivers averaging more than 18 yards per catch. They're just going up and making plays over defenders regardless of who's on them right now. And as Jaden Gibson said, doesn't care who they're going against. Anybody can get it.
Yeah. No, Jaden Gibson, he's been awesome to watch. And there's nobody. Obviously, that receiver group feels like they're close-knit, like you're kind of just saying with the group text, things like that. But there is nobody that gets more hype for their guys than Jaden Gibson. When Nick Anderson was going nuts in Tulsa over the weekend, Jaden Gibson, you would think he was the one scoring. He was so fired up, running out there and just, body slamming Nick Anderson basically with excitement. And, I can't remember who it was, maybe Angelo Anthony, somebody called him. He's kind of like the cheerleader of the group. He really is. So he's been a delight. And that receiver core has been the single, breakout position, at least for me. I think for everybody would probably say that. It's been a lot of fun to watch, and we'll see how that continues to go.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think it was Drake Stoops after the game on Saturday. He was talking about you see one guy make big plays, and it's kind of contagious.
Yeah.
It just feels like that's how it's been with this group so far. They've gotten, 6 different guys have caught a touchdown already.
Right.
Right. 8 guys have been routinely involved in that rotation. They are all making plays across the board. And that's what we said that they needed from that group coming into the season. Because we knew Dylan Gabriel has been a solid college quarterback, but this unit, the way they've taken a step forward has helped Dylan Gabriel take another step forward because, again, he's been one of the best quarterbacks in college football through the first 3 weeks. And it's in part because of his own skill and in part because of just this, rapport he's been able to build with this kind of new wide receiver group.
100%. I was going to ask you kind of one of the last things on this game. Do you foresee more Jackson Arnold hijinks? So we saw them do some trick plays and stuff, the end around and things like that. It's clear that they want him to be involved in some fashion. This is his first real life, road game, obviously. Dylan Gabriel, meanwhile, has played a lot of road games. He's been in a lot of hostile environments. He's been at Cincinnati before from his days at UCF, I believe. So this is not anything new for him playing in these kind of environments. Jackson Arnold will be brand new, obviously. I can't help but wonder if they lean more on Gabriel, kind of put the Arnold stuff to the side a little bit, or if they still do it. I kind of tend to think they're still going to try and do it at least a little. What do you think about with that? Because obviously the Arnold package has been a little clunky, I should say. It's had some moments, but overall it's been a little clunky through the first couple of weeks that they've tried to do that. So I'm interested to see what it looks like this time.
Yeah, I think it's still going to be a situational thing. I mean, you think about last week, we didn't see it until the very end of the first half when they got down to the goal line there. And Jeff Levy kind of admitted afterward that, probably should have handled that one a little bit differently because it cost them a touchdown. Just the way and the time in which they did that. But it's clear that they would want to continue to try to develop that package and get him some reps in some manner. So I'm interested to see how that plays out this weekend. Because like you said, this is going to be his first real road game. It's going to be his first Big 12 game. You want him to get some reps. You want him to see some snaps in that situation. But I think a lot of it is going to just depend on kind of the flow of the game and when they feel like they can get him in there. Because even I think it was after last week's game, Brad Vettel was like, yeah, we basically had two situations, in the game plan for Jackson Arnold. They were able to get him in there both times. How many times, in their game plan this week, how many different situations do they feel like they can get him in? Where does that fit in? How does it look? Because I think they're going to continue to kind of move him around a little bit. We saw him split out wide receiver for the second game in a row. This time they ran a couple trick plays. They're going to want, with that Texas game looming, like you said, they want to put little wrinkles in there to make Texas prepare for it, even if they're not going to use it. It's just something else that, that Texas has to, dedicate a little bit of time to and be ready for. But yeah, I'm just interested to see how that package evolves. And quick note, you mentioned Dylan Gabriel. Obviously, he's played Cincinnati before. He was asked after practice the other day if he knows what his career record is against him. Said he didn't want to say it. But his teams have not won against Cincinnati. Just like
Satterfield said it for him.
Just like prior to the Tulsa game, he had not beaten Tulsa before, even when they were, conference opponents. So this is kind of the Dylan Gabriel revenge tour right now, it seems. Checked off Tulsa. We'll see what he can do against Cincinnati in that road game.
100%. Texas. He didn't play the Texas game, so I guess he doesn't have a revenge tour for them. But I'll say Texas will be the next one, I guess. He'll take revenge for OU if he can after what happened last year. All right, let's go ahead and pick the game. Colin and James had their picks earlier. Colin was 38-21. James was 35-17. What about you, Tom? 14.5-point spread.
Yeah, man, I think we're all on the same page this one. I had 38-17 down. You look at Cincinnati. I mean, they're averaging more than 30 points a game, but 60-something of that came against an FCS opponent. The last 2 weeks, they've put up 27 and I think 21. I think Oklahoma's defense is better than the two defenses that Cincinnati has faced so far. I think this offense is going to keep rolling. I don't think it's going to put up prolific numbers like it did week 1 and week 3, but I think they're going to look better than they did in that kind of head scratcher against SMU. So yeah, let's go 38-17.
Yeah, I have 41-17 Oklahoma. I don't like being the high man on Oklahoma scoring points, and the old one has them cracking 40. The offense is hard to, because it has been really good, but like we said, the running game has been a little spotty at times. And, I picked him to go big number against SMU, and obviously they struggled for a long while in that game. And then because of that, I kind of reeled it in a bit against Tulsa. They went to go over 60 again. So I'm going to kind of split the difference, I guess, hedge a little at 41. But I do think the defense is going to do a good job. I only go 17 just because Emory Jones, the ability to extend plays, and those coverage busts, they did happen against Tulsa. So, we'll give a little cushion, but that's still, if they win by my score, 24-point win on the road, that's a really good performance. So I continue to believe in the defense and what Oklahoma's doing. I think that the offense will be fine. I think that they'll run the ball fine. I don't think they're going to light it up. I think the numbers will be okay, comparable to what they've been, even though the opponent is tougher, especially on the defensive front. And then, I think the defense continues to play well, forces some turnovers, and I think Oklahoma – I think it's probably a pretty competitive game into the second half, but by the time it's all said and done, Oklahoma's well out in front, beginning to mid of the fourth quarter or so.
Yeah, I mean, I think this team, they obviously have a lot of confidence right now, but I think that a lot of them are also cognizant of how last season unfolded after that 3-0 start. Things just feel different. I know I wasn't here a year ago for that, but just like talking to these guys, like they feel real confident that they're not going to kind of go into this, downward spiral after this 3-0 start once conference play starts. So we'll see if they can kind of change that narrative and, keep momentum rolling. Obviously, this game next week against Iowa State, your last, dress rehearsal before, the big test.
100%. Going to be fun. Looking forward to getting out there. We're all flying, Tom, James, and I, on Friday. And so we'll be there, ready to rock and roll on Saturday morning from Nippert Stadium. It's going to be fun, new experience for everybody, and taking the show out on the road. So be sure to keep up with all of us on Twitter and, of course, the VIP subscriber board, Oklahoma247sports.com, for all the updates from Cincinnati. And be sure to keep up all during the game. The place to be on game day is Oklahoma247sports.com. Full game thread and reaction as the game is going on, but as well, of course, after the ball game, from the three of us, Collin Kennedy, of course, Brent Venables, players. James and I will do the post-game wrap-up on the field after the game, so be sure to keep up on the YouTube channel as well as wherever you get your podcasts for that. Also, full game day coverage from Cincy coming up on Saturday. Going to be a fun one, Tom. I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, me too. Let's get it rolling.
Let's do it. All right, that's it for us for now. For Collin Kennedy and James Jackson earlier, Tom Green, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll see you on Saturday from Cincinnati, Ohio. We'll catch you then.